The moment my wife, Jennifer, sat me down at the kitchen table with a legal-sized envelope and a look of cold triumph, I knew our marriage had moved from a partnership to a transaction. She didn't offer a hug or a celebratory drink. She simply tapped the document with her manicured fingernail and said, "This is $500,000, Jason. It's the inheritance from my Aunt Margaret. And before you start dreaming about a new car or paying off the house, let's get one thing straight. This is my family's money. It's for my parents' retirement and my brother's business debt. You aren't a blood member of this family, so don't expect a dime. You'll keep handling the mortgage and the bills just like you always have." I looked at her, the woman I'd supported through 3 years of finding herself, while I worked 80-hour weeks on a shoestring startup, and I realized I wasn't her husband. I was her benefactor. But Jennifer made one fatal mistake. She assumed my little computer project was still a struggling dream. She had no idea that 3 hours ago, I had signed a merger agreement that made her $500,000 look like pocket change. Before we see how this financial standoff turns into a total collapse, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment below. Have you ever been told that what's mine is mine, but what's yours is ours? Let's get into the story. The air in our suburban home felt thinner after that announcement. I sat there, staring at the steam rising from my coffee, listening to Jennifer already on the phone with her mother, bragging about the financial security she was bringing to the Sterling clan. Not once did she mention our mounting debt or the fact that the roof needed a $20,000 repair. To her, I was a utility, a constant source of income that didn't require maintenance or appreciation. "Mom, I'm thinking we do Italy in the fall," Jennifer chirped from the living room, her voice dripping with an excitement she hadn't shown me in years. "First class all the way. We deserve it after all the stress we've been under." "No, Jason isn't coming. He's too busy with his little consulting gigs. Besides, he'd just complain about the cost of the pasta." I felt a cold, sharp clarity wash over me. For 3 years, I had lived on ramen and caffeine, pouring every spare cent into Nexus Stream, the software architecture I'd built in our cramped garage. I had hidden the stress of the acquisition talks because I wanted to surprise her. I wanted us to walk into the sunset together, free from the burden of the mortgage and the grind. But as I heard her planning a luxury life that explicitly excluded me, using her new wealth as a wall rather than a bridge, the surprise I had planned changed its shape entirely. I pulled up my banking app on my phone under the table. There it was. The initial payout from the exit event, $2 million. It sat there, a silent mountain of digital gold. "Jason," Jennifer shouted, snapping her fingers to get my attention as she walked back into the kitchen. "Are you even listening? I need you to transfer the property tax payment by Friday. I'm moving my inheritance into a private offshore account tomorrow so it doesn't get mingled with our joint expenses. I don't want your business debts touching my family's legacy." "I hear you, Jennifer," I said, my voice eerily calm. "You want a clear line in the sand. Your money is for your family. My income is for for my obligations." "Exactly," she said, appearing relieved that I wasn't putting up a fight. "I'm glad you're being mature about this. It's just fair. My blood, my money. You understand, right?" "Oh, I understand perfectly," I replied. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the stranger she had become. The greed had sharpened her features, making her look like someone I wouldn't even want to have a drink with, let alone share a life with. She didn't notice the way I gripped my phone. She didn't see the email I sent to my lawyer with the subject line, "Initiate the petition and the filing." She was too busy scrolling through luxury villas in Tuscany, picking out rooms for her brother and her parents, leaving this servant at home to keep the lights on. She had no idea that while she was building her small, greedy fence, I was preparing to move to an entirely different world. The mortgage payment she was so worried about? I had already decided it would be the last one I ever made on this house. But she wouldn't find that out tonight. I needed her to get comfortable with her new status first. For the next week, I became a ghost in my own home. I watched Jennifer transform into a high-stakes travel agent for her family, her laptop permanently tuned to luxury resort galleries and private charter quotes. She stopped asking me how my day was. She only asked if I'd remembered to pay the landscaping bill or if I'd fixed the leak in the upstairs bathroom. It was as if her $500,000 inheritance had elevated her to a different social class, while I remained the hired help who happened to sleep in the master bedroom. Things are about to go from cold to freezing. If you think Jennifer is in for the shock of a lifetime, hit that like button right now. And don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss how Jason plays his final card. Let's get back to the drama. The peak of her arrogance arrived on Thursday night. I was sitting in my home office, reviewing the final closing documents for the Nexus Stream sale, when Jennifer walked in without knocking. She didn't look at the screen, she never did, so she didn't see the 7-figure wire transfer confirmation. She just dropped a stack of brochures on my keyboard. "I've finalized the itinerary for the Sterling Family Heritage Tour," she said, beaming. 2 weeks in Lake Como, a week in Paris, and a private yacht through the Greek Isles. My brother, Michael, is so excited. He's been so stressed with his debt, and this is exactly what he needs to clear his head. I glanced at the brochures. The total cost for a trip like that, for 4 people at that level of luxury, would easily eat up $60,000 or $70,000. "And where am I in these plans, Jen?" I asked quietly. She let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Honestly, Jason, someone has to stay here and watch the house. Besides, you're always so focused on your startup. You'd just be a killjoy worrying about the Wi-Fi signal the whole time. This is a chance for me to give back to the people who truly supported me growing up. It's a family thing. You understand." "Support?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. "You mean the same family that told you to divorce me 3 years ago because I was wasting my time on this company? The same brother who refused to lend us $1,000 when our water heater blew up?" Jennifer's face hardened. "That's in the past. They're my blood. And since it's my inheritance, I get to decide who is worthy of it. I've already moved the funds into a separate account under my maiden name. I suggest you keep your focus on making sure the mortgage is covered while I'm away. I don't want any past due notices waiting for me when I get back from Europe." I nodded slowly. "So, let me get the rules straight one more time. Your money is a private family fund. My money is a public utility for your lifestyle. Is that the deal?" "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "It's just practical. You're the provider, Jason. That was our agreement when we got married. My inheritance is a gift, and you don't use gifts to pay for boring things like property taxes. Now, I'm going out for drinks with Sarah to celebrate. Don't wait up." As the door slammed behind her, I felt a strange sense of relief. Any lingering guilt I had about what I was about to do evaporated. She had made it clear. We weren't a we. We were a her and a me. I picked up the phone and called my realtor. "The penthouse at the Vantage," I said. "The one with the floor-to-ceiling views of the bay. Is it still available?" "It is, Mr. Sterling," the realtor replied, his voice dripping with the respect that only a massive down payment can buy. "But it's a quick close. They want the funds by Monday." "Check your email," I said. "The full amount is being wired as we speak. I want the keys by Friday, and I'll need a crew to move some specific items, just the things in my office and my personal wardrobe. Everything else in this house can stay." I then logged into our joint mortgage portal. Jennifer didn't know it, but our mortgage had a buyout clause. I calculated my half of the remaining equity. I wasn't going to leave her homeless. That wasn't my style. But I was going to leave her with the full weight of the responsibility she so casually dumped on me. I authorized a one-time payment to cover exactly 50% of the remaining balance of the home. I was officially paid up on my half of our life. The rest of the night, I sat in the dark, watching the clock. I wasn't just waiting for the morning. I was waiting for the moment the Sterling Family Heritage Tour collided with the reality of a man who was done being a safety net for people who didn't even want him at the table. Friday morning arrived with a crisp, indifferent sunlight that bled through the blinds. Jennifer was already buzzing around the kitchen, her suitcase, a brand new, designer hardshell she'd bought with her private funds, sitting by the door. She was headed to a spa weekend with her mother to pregame for their European extravaganza. She was humming a tune, completely oblivious to the fact that the man sitting across from her was no longer her husband, but a stranger who had already moved on. We are approaching the point of no return. If you love seeing a silent partner finally find their voice, make sure you're subscribed. And drop a Team Jason in the comments if you think he's doing the right thing. Let's see how this house of cards starts to wobble. "Oh, Jason," she said, pausing to check her reflection in the microwave door. "I almost forgot. Michael's car is in the shop again. I told him you'd Venmo him $500 for the rental. It's just easier than me dipping into the inheritance account before the trip. You can just skip your tech gadget budget for the month, right?" I didn't even look up from my laptop. I'm not sending Michael any money, Jennifer. If he needs a rental, he can ask the sister who just inherited $500,000. Jennifer stopped humming. She turned around, her hands on her hips, her eyes narrowing in that familiar way that used to make me back down. Excuse me? We talked about this. My money is a legacy. Your money is our cash flow. Why are you being so difficult lately? It's $500. It's nothing to you. It's the principle, I said, finally closing the laptop. You've spent the last week drawing lines in the sand, Jennifer. You've built a wall between your wealth and our life. I'm just respecting the boundaries you set. If we are separate when it comes to the gains, we are separate when it comes to the losses. Michael isn't my family. Your words, remember? You are being incredibly petty, she hissed, grabbing her purse. Fine, I'll handle it, but don't expect me to be in a good mood when I get back. You're lucky I'm even staying in this marriage with your attitude. She slammed the door, and I heard her car roar out of the driveway. I didn't waste a second. Within 20 minutes, a professional moving crew arrived. They weren't there to take the sofa or the dining table. They were there for my life. They packed my high-end monitors, my ergonomic chair, my collection of rare books, and my wardrobe. By noon, my office, the room where I had sweated and bled to build a multi-million-dollar company, was an empty shell of white walls and carpet indentations. I spent the afternoon at my lawyer's office. We went over the exit strategy one last time. Since I had used my personal, premarital savings to fund the initial phase of my startup and kept the business accounts strictly segregated from our joint funds, the $2 million was protected. But the real masterstroke was the house. The payment for your 50% of the equity has cleared, my lawyer, Mr. Vance, said, sliding a folder across the desk. As of this morning, you have fulfilled your financial obligation to the mortgage. We've filed the partition deed. Effectively, you own your half, and she owns hers. But since you're filing for divorce on the grounds of financial abandonment and irreconcilable differences, she's going to have a very hard time forcing you to keep paying the other half. And the Sterling Family Fund? I asked. Vance smirked. Once she's served with the papers and sees that the joint account, the one you used to pay all the household bills, has been closed, well, she'll have to use that inheritance just to keep the lights on and pay the lawyers. Her first-class trip to Italy is about to become a coach trip to the courthouse. I drove to my new home, the penthouse at the Vantage. When the elevator opened directly into the living room, I was greeted by 360-degree views of the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and gold. I stood there, looking down at the tiny, distant suburban neighborhood I had just left. I felt a pang of sadness, but it was quickly replaced by a surge of power. I had been the silent engine of Jennifer's life for a decade, and she had mistaken my silence for weakness. That evening, I sent one final email to the joint account Jennifer used for her personal spending. I didn't say goodbye. I simply attached a screenshot of my new bank balance and a copy of the notice of termination of financial support. Then, I turned off my phone. I knew what was coming. Jennifer would return from her spa weekend feeling like a queen, only to find an empty office, a for sale sign on my half of the property, and a stack of legal documents that would turn her $500,000 windfall into a legal defense fund. She wanted her money for her family only? Fine. She was about to find out exactly how expensive it is to be a family of one. The weekend passed in a blur of serene, expensive silence. From the balcony of my penthouse, the world looked organized and manageable, a stark contrast to the chaos I knew was brewing across town. On Monday morning, I finally powered on my phone. The device nearly vibrated out of my hand. 47 missed calls, dozens of texts ranging from, "Where are you?" to "I'm calling the police." And finally, a string of incoherent, rage-filled voicemails from Jennifer's mother. The bubble had burst. This is it, the final reckoning. If you've ever wanted to be a fly on the wall for a moment of pure, poetic justice, you're in the right place. Before we reveal the final blow, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and tell us in the comments. Is Jennifer a victim of her own greed, or was Jason too cold? Let's finish this. I drove back to the old house one last time, not to talk, but to ensure the process server had done his job. As I pulled up, I saw Jennifer's car parked crookedly in the driveway. She was sitting on the front porch, the designer suitcase from her spa weekend discarded in the grass. In her hand was the thick stack of divorce papers and the equity petition notice. She looked up as I stepped out of the car, and for the first time in 10 years, the arrogance was gone. It was replaced by a raw, naked panic. "Jason," she whispered, her voice cracking. "What is this? I went to buy coffee this morning, and my card was declined. I came home and your offices, it's gone. You emptied it. And this paper says you've paid off your half of the house. What about the rest? What about the mortgage payment due on the 1st? That's your half, Jennifer," I said, leaning against the mailbox. "Since you were so adamant about keeping our finances separate and protecting your blood family's legacy, I decided to help you achieve that total independence. I've settled my portion of the debt. You own 50% of this house. The other 50% is currently being listed by my realtor. You can buy me out using your inheritance, or we can sell the whole thing. It's up to you." "But I can't afford the mortgage on my own," she screamed, standing up. "And the trip? I've already put deposits down on the hotels in Como. I used my credit card, and I was going to use the joint account to pay it off." "The joint account is closed," I said calmly. "And as for the trip, I suggest you call Michael. Maybe he can use some of that family support you talked so much about to help you out." "Oh, wait. He's still waiting for that $500 for his rental car, isn't he?" Jennifer stepped toward me, her face contorting. "You've been hiding money, Jason. I saw the screenshot you sent. $2 million? How? That startup was supposed to be a hobby. You lied to me." "I didn't lie, Jennifer. I just stopped sharing. I followed your lead. You told me your inheritance was for your family only. Well, I realized that I'm the only family I have who actually values me. So, my exit from the company is for me only. I'm moving into a penthouse downtown. You're staying here, at least until the bank realizes you don't have the income to cover the remaining balance." The realization finally hit her. The $500,000 she thought would make her the queen of her family was now the only thing standing between her and total financial ruin. Between the mortgage, the credit card debt she'd racked up in a week of greed, and the high-priced divorce attorneys she'd now need, that inheritance was going to disappear faster than a summer sunset. "You're destroying me," she sobbed, sinking back onto the porch steps. "No," I replied, turning back to my car. "I'm just letting you be the independent woman you claim to be. You wanted to draw a line in the sand, Jennifer. I just made sure it was a permanent one." I drove away without looking back. As I reached the end of the street, I saw a taxi pulling up. It was Michael, likely coming to ask for more money. I chuckled to myself. He was in for a very long, very expensive afternoon. Author's conclusion. Wealth has a funny way of revealing who people really are. For Jennifer, a $500,000 windfall didn't bring security. It brought out a sense of superiority that blinded her to the value of her partnership. She forgot that a marriage isn't just about sharing the bills. It's about shared vision. By excluding Jason from her joy, she inadvertently excluded herself from his success. In the end, Jason didn't win by having more money. He won by realizing his worth was no longer tied to being a doormat for a family that only valued his wallet. Thank you for following this journey of financial justice. If you want to see more stories where the quiet partner finally takes charge, hit that subscribe button and click the like. Don't forget to let us know your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.